There's only one man to get on, former MEP and Reform UK member Ben Habib. A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I'm glad I'm on for your mental health.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're on for my mental health. You just made me feel better about my life. Ben, nice to speak to you, my friend.
Good to see you.
Where do I start with you today? Oh, yes. Quick impression. Hello, I'm Yvette Cooper, the new Home Secretary. I guarantee I'm going to lock up and deport more migrants. I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to tell you when. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm just going to say that that's what I'm going to do. If I'm right, Ben, and every single politician since I sat down here 3 years ago has told me that the Home Office isn't fit for purpose because it's run by a bunch of opinionated civil servants, what difference is Miss Cooper's words going to make?
Yeah, well, absolutely right. I mean, they've all, successive Home Secretaries have repeatedly said, we're going to deport anyone who enters the country illegally will not be allowed to stay. What they're not taking on board, and what she's turning a deaf ear to as well, is the fact that the law, once they're in this land, the law that we have in this country, and remember, we're not in control of our own law because it goes all the way to the European Court of Human Rights if the British courts don't adjudicate in favour of the illegal migrant. The law basically says once you're in the country, you have a right to make an asylum application whether or not you entered illegally. Now, the Illegal Migration Act, which Suella Braverman brought in, tried to distinguish between those who came here on an aeroplane and then presented themselves for asylum versus those who came across the channel illegally. But the Labour Party has already turned its back on that. It's turned its back on the Rwandan scheme. And its approach to date has been threefold, sorry. The first is to accelerate asylum applications, for which I read basically granting all those waiting for an asylum, just so that the optics of them being detained in hotels and whatnot disappears and the cost apparently disappears. The second approach is to sign into the European Union scheme for the resettlement of illegal migrants, and that will be coming down the track soon, where basically they're going to legitimize, again, illegal migration by allocating countries a certain number of migrants. Brussels will do this. They'll come to our country and we'll be told, well, this is our allocation, they're legal and we need to settle them. So that's the first two things that they're going to do, basically encouraging more illegal migration through those first two steps. And then the last thing is this border security command they've set up, which is the bringing together of 5 domestic agencies: National Crime Agency, Border Force, Crown Prosecution Service, MI5, and one other, I can't remember what it is, but they're all domestic crime agencies, none of which can tackle the people smuggling gangs that the agency's been, the border command has been set up to tackle, because the people smuggling gangs aren't based in the UK. They're based in Europe. And this is a domestic set of agencies. So the whole thing is optics again. And, you know, one of the things that Yvette Cooper's banged on about and Starmer's banged on about is the cost of Rwanda. And I agree the cost of Rwanda was massive and no results to show for it. But the 6,000 people that have come in across the channel since Labour's been in office is going to cost this country £300 million a year.
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you there, because you're absolutely right. Let me ask you 2 questions from my point of view, because you know far more about this than I do. I wasn't a fan of Rwanda, but unless you have a deterrent that says to people, if you come to this country, this is going to happen, then for me, you're just saying to people, come readily. And when, as you quite rightly said, a law that we made ourselves says that if you get here, even if you've broken the law to get here, you have certain rights. That makes a fuss. Davies just sent this text, says, please read this to Ben Habib, who I love. How the hell, he says, can we be a foreign country if we cannot control and legislate our own borders? I think that's absolutely laid on us. I mean, that's a fact, isn't it?
He's absolutely right. And I've taken recently to calling Starmer, and we're going to talk about Sadiq Khan, I think, people like them anti-British, because at their heart, they're prepared to be governed by a foreign power and to take down our borders. If you take down a country's borders, it is no longer a nation. It can no longer call itself a country because it's an open mass of land which anyone can, travel to without any prohibition or inhibition. And so I call them anti-British. And the left sort of open border lunatic brigade no doubt have their eyes swimming in their heads and eyebrows going up and down when I say that. But I can't describe them in any other way. If you're prepared to make the United Kingdom borderless, you're anti-British. That's it. And that's how I see them.
I mean, many people will say the ECHR is the thing to leave. What I don't understand is a country that, again, the bedwetters won't like this, for a country that fought, right, for its independence, it's an island, for a country that, I mean, I believe that most people that voted for Leave expected us to take control. Now, for whatever reasons, that didn't happen. I don't think it's a bad thing to want to do that. I mean, I find it, I find it astonishing that we're looked at in a negative way if we say, what's wrong with us making up our own rules? I don't understand. Also, my point, I've said to you before, why we do not do more with long-term unemployed, not people who are mentally ill, disabled, but if we're having to import, which is what Blair started, people to be fruit pickers and hospital porters and do other menial jobs that I had said to me by somebody yesterday, Ben, that most people who are unemployed don't want to do. Sorry, I come from a different world. We're giving you something for doing nothing. You're stuck in a rut. I want you out of bed, giving something back to the community and getting something on your CV, because if it doesn't, you ain't getting your dole. And in terms of the only way I can describe the migration thing, which then caused me to put a tin hat on, the only natural deterrent is to send people back or turn them away. Oh no, we can't do that. We haven't got returns agreements and everything. Oh, but we're all right. It's all right to come here because we're as soft as whatever. But everybody else apparently you can't because they're tough.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the whole thing is wretched. And, all the issues that you cited, the long-term unemployed who are not working, mass immigration and inability to control our borders, of course, they're all linked, aren't they? Because, if you import cheap labour, what you do is keep a lid on British wages. You make it impossible for the average Brit to earn a decent wage because the rug is being pulled out from underneath them with this constant supply of cheap labour. You also force business. You don't put any pressure on businesses to automate and upskill. So productivity goes through the floor. We get poorer as a nation. GDP per capita goes down. And we've seen all of this play out. And then these lunatics will say that, well, that's all Brexit. It's got nothing to do with Brexit. It's got everything to do with open borders, mass immigration, and inability to get our economy going forward. And of course, they couple all of that with high taxes. So small and medium-sized enterprises, working class, middle class, who aren't earning a lot anyway, then have to pay massive taxes, which are then used, as you see where I'm going with this, Jeremy, which are then used to pay the benefits to those people who are long-term ill.
God.
And the whole thing is the vicious circle. And they've got to break this. We've got to bite the bullet. We've got to slash immigration. We've got to cut taxes on the working and middle classes. We've got to cut benefits on the long-term inactive. And we've got to make the economic and cultural constitutional machine that is the United Kingdom moving forward on all cylinders. And we're never going to do that with the kind of model being practiced by the Labour Party and indeed by the Conservative Party before them.
Completely agree. I want to ask you a couple more things before you go. Sadiq Khan has apparently sparked a major Labour rift today after claiming he's an idiot, that the UK could soon rejoin the EU. I bet that reverberated around number 10, because many Tories, many Liberal Democrats, many Brexiteers believe that it's just a matter of time, Ben.
Yeah, well, Keir Starmer is going to align us very, very closely with the EU. Boris Johnson never delivered Brexit. He never delivered it. He left part of our country behind. He hitched us at the hip in all sorts of laws with the EU, including a commitment to net zero, which is utter madness, and a commitment to staying in the European Convention of Human Rights. That was in Boris Johnson's deal. So we never got Brexit. But Keir Starmer's going to make it worse. He's going to align the entire legislative framework of the UK with the EU, because that's how he sees the future of the United Kingdom, as part of the EU. So whilst the papers were saying, the media was saying today, there'll be a rift between Starmer and Sadiq because Sadiq has broken ranks, There's no ideological rift. They are absolutely at one. Just Sadiq wants to push the agenda faster than Starmer.
And he's probably got him to say it. Ben, you won't mind me asking, this is an interview you gave earlier. That, you know, we look at all sides. You gave an interview to Times Radio today in which you said you had concerns over the leadership of Reform UK. Can you just clarify for Talk viewers and listeners who have been messaging in the thousands, what does that mean? Do you back Richard Tyson, Nigel Farage, Lee Anderson? What does it mean?
That's out of context. I have no issues with the leadership of Reform UK. I have an issue with the party not being democratised, with members not being able to choose the leadership.
I've got you.
Yeah, and so we need to, for Reform UK to form a government, it can't be controlled by one individual as it is at the moment. Nigel effectively owns the company that is Reform UK. And that's great when you're an insurgency and you're, you know, banging the drums and you've got to make quick decisions and you've got to get your 5 seats in Parliament, which we've now got. But if we want to be in government in 2029 and we want to champion democracy, as we repeatedly say we do, then the party itself has to be democratic. We have to look, feel and behave like a democratic,
I would never misquote you because I've got it here. The exact words you used with the challenge for reform now is, can it go from being an insurgency shouting on the sidelines, as you said, with 2 or 3, you know, articulate speakers at the top of the party making the case to being a proper political party? In other words, actually being democratised, behaving like a party as opposed to a company, which is, as I mentioned, you know, behaving like a political party, democratising itself, giving people the ability to point the leadership of the party. What you're saying is, it's almost saying it can't be a job for a few guys, a few men, a few women, whatever. It has to professionalise itself if it wants to be taken seriously and spread its base.
Absolutely.
Would that be fair, Ben?
Absolutely right. And at the heart of this, Jeremy, is the 4 million people who voted for us and the many millions more who would have voted for us if they hadn't been scared of splitting the centre-right vote, you know, which the Tories had sort of given everyone the heebie-jeebies about. And the reason I say that at the heart of this is because in order to protect and promote and make sure we deliver the promises we made to them, we've got to give them a voice. We've marched them up to the top of the hill. We've given them excitement. We've encouraged them. We've created anticipation. Now we need to deliver for them. It doesn't matter who the leadership is. The movement has to be preserved and promoted.
Do you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. I was in Newcastle. I was at St James's Park in a box on Saturday. There were 12 people, myself and 11 others. All 11 talked about how Labour is no longer the party of the working man. This belief that if you live north of Watford Gap, you know, no. They were totally disillusioned with the Tory party over Brexit, and all they talked about reform. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I hope we're friends. The second one and first one you might not answer. Do you see a scenario where Suella Braverman goes to reform? Because I do.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Suella, I would have already joined reform. Clearly, the way she thinks and the views she holds are not welcome in the Conservative Party. I mean, I would have hoped that they would be welcome because all she wants is, you know, basic borders, a prosperous United Kingdom, sovereign democracy, power here, etc. You would have thought that's basic, but there's the whole one nation lot that still control the party. And you might have seen, Jeremy, that I've been advocating for Priti Patel in the leadership contest because not because Priti Patel has an unblemished track record. I mean, as Home Secretary, like Suella Braverman, as Home Secretary, you know, we had mass immigration under both of them. But Priti Patel has been a steadfast Brexiteer since the mid-90s. And we need someone at the dispatch box that's making those arguments and hopefully getting the Conservative Party to discover their conservatism. You know,
one thing you should say, you should know before we go. Loads and loads of people love having you on there. Lindsay thinks you should be Prime Minister. Will we see you, a real talent, and I mean this, in a more forthright position in reform? Because the way you are and the way you speak, it would be a loss if you're not, my friend. And that's from lots and lots of people. I mean that. So.
Thank you. I mean, right now it's not my decision; it's Nigel's. You know, we'll just see what happens.
Well, we hope it happens because I think it will be an absolute benefit to Reform UK. Ben Habib, thank you so much indeed.